hello, and welcome to the Tom Marie Show, where we keep it real on the mic, making inspiring choices. So today's guest is Genesis County 911 Dispatch Authority telecommunicator, Kendra Green. Hello, Kendra.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So, today's episode is 911 What's Your Emergency? So, Kenra, I wanted to do this episode to inform the viewers of the proper way to call 911. We know that everybody that has to pick up the phone and dial 911, they're nervous. But I want you to give insight, educate, and encourage the all the viewers that it's okay to call 911. It's just a proper way to do it and things to remember when calling 911. So,
Absolutely.
so Kimra, let's start off by telling the viewers who Kimra Green is.
Well, I'm Kendra Green. I am born and raised in Flint, and I have been a dispatcher for 10, going on 11 years. The first almost half of my career was done with Genesee County, with Flint City, just the city that I lived in. We dispatched only for them. Then they merged with the county. And so I've been working the last 6, going on 7 years with the county. So we're going on 11 years here. So it's been a bit of a journey, but I enjoy what I do, and I'm glad to have been doing it for as long as I have. So
Well, first of all, thank you for helping all around, even though you are in another state, another county.
yes,
It's it's always good to just have someone to let people know, about the 911, what it entails, what to do when you call, all those things. And that just helps out, especially with children and elderly people, because sometimes I know they kind of freeze because they don't know exactly what to say or what to do. First reaction is to scream. So,
yeah.
Kimra, who or what inspired you to become a 911 telecommunicator?
Always telling this story is so funny because, especially like we go to trainings and they always ask this at trainings. And, people have these beautiful stories about how they just always wanted to help people since they were children. And to be completely honest with you, I am so honest. I always say I was peer pressured into this job. My father was a firefighter for 20 something odd years with the city of Flint here in Michigan. And every time 911 was hiring, he would bring me an application to fill it out and to take it back. So I applied and interviewed 3 times before I actually got the position. It was never anything I thought about doing, like never in my wildest dreams would I ever have thought I'd be working at 911.
Well, I can say this. You do have the voice, clear communication, clearly spoken, and you have it just for this job. Um,
Thank you.
um, it's interesting that you said that your dad was a firefighter, so it's kind of like it was already in your blood, unknowingly.
Right. Annoyingly,
Maybe,
yes. I spent a lot of years at the fire department. Like going into this job, people already knew who I was because of my dad. You know what I mean? So yes, it was in the blood.
but just look at it. It's a good thing though. So you had
Yes.
you were in the door, but you had 5 steps already there. So that helped
Right.
with your journey to get to where you are. So Kimra, can you just explain to the audience a little bit about what your job involves?
So our job is broken down into 2 parts. We are call takers and we are dispatchers. There are some centers, they're so large, like in the bigger cities, like maybe Detroit or Houston, those kind of places. They're broken down where you're only a call taker or you're only a dispatcher. But here we do both. We're cross trained. So we take emergency calls and we dispatch for the local police, the local fire department, and we dispatch for the local ambulances here. So if you call in, you're going to get one of us, or some days I might be sending the police to your door. So,
Thanks for breaking that down. I never knew. I just thought that calling 911, you would speak to someone. I never knew, the behind the scenes of how things were broken down. That's interesting to know. Good tip. So Kimra, can you just give us an example of a 911 call?
Um, yes, I've got plenty of stories, but it all depends on what aspect you want to go. We get them all. A lot of the times, people think, which is a rumor that I can take care of now, people think that we get just frightening, horrific, life ending calls all the time. Like, it's nothing like you see in movies or like you see on television. We absolutely get emergency calls, but you'd be surprised how often they are not emergency calls. People are just upset or they're sad. And so to them, it's an emergency, but actual like horrific life ending calls, we don't get those often. You get people that call 911 for everything. They tend to think that police can take care of everything. It's a spectrum. We'll get calls from they're upset about where the newspaper person put the newspaper, all the way up to, someone being shot or injured or having a child or those kind of things. So it's such a wide spectrum.
Wide spectrum.
Yes.
Which is interesting, that you said that people would call 911 because of a newspaper.
That's
You
an
would
actual call too. I'm not making it up. That's an actual call. He was upset about where the newspaper guy was throwing the paper and wanted the police to come talk to him about how to properly throw his newspaper.
so I'm just interested, where did that call lead to? Like, what was the ending solution?
I do believe we sent a dispatcher out. So we dispatch for 27 different police departments here just within our county. So some of the jurisdictions, they have the staffing, and they're a little smaller city within this county, so you can send officers to do those kind of things, to go out and to talk to the citizen just to make them feel better. And I can't particularly remember where it was at, but I believe that was one of those instances where we did send an officer to go out and talk to the citizen, to make them feel better. So,
So I bet the viewers are wondering just like me. So when you report this call, like how does the EMS, how do they react when you call and say, "Oh, we have a guy that is upset about his newspaper"? What's their first reaction?
you'll get some officers like, once you air it to them, they may pause for a while and then they're like, copy, or they we can talk to each other through our work computer. So you may get a message like, seriously. And it's like, yes, I'm sorry they called, so you gotta go. You know what I mean? But they feel the same way we feel. Like, sometimes you're like, are you serious? You call 911 for this? You just couldn't have a conversation with him yourself about this? But
Right,
yes.
which is so crazy because so I have a degree, undergrad and graduate degree in communications, and actually I've always wanted to do 911 dispatch only because I wanted to get that experience. But you mentioned earlier movies and TV shows, they kind of ruined that for me. So I was like, not my cup of tea. I don't think I want to do that because sometimes, and that's just like being at the grocery store or out and about. When people come up to you and say certain things, your automatic reaction is going to be the first thing that comes to mind. And I don't want to ruin anybody's day. Like, seriously, you called in for that? That's how I would respond. But Kimra, so you've given us some examples and given an example of a range of the calls that you get. What is the proper way to call 911?
Um, we do understand that certain calls are going to be taken a certain way. For me and most of my colleagues, we prefer a more calm caller. It definitely helps you and it helps me. But like I said, we know in some situations we're not going to get that. If you're calling and your child's missing, or you have a loved one that's not breathing, or maybe someone was severely injured, we know you're not going to be as calm as we would like for you to be. But the yelling and the screaming, it just prolongs the entire thing because I'm having to repeat myself. You're having to repeat yourself. You can't hear me. I can't hear you. So to try to just bring it down some would be great, but also an address. Like, we do not track calls. People tend to think that's the TV movie thing again. We do not track calls. We have to go through your cell phone provider, which it takes quite some time. And actually, Halle Berry's movie, The Call, properly showed that. And I was so excited because it properly showed you that it just does not happen right away, and sometimes, I won't name the cell phone company, but there's a particular cell phone company. If they don't deem it an emergency, they will not ping the phone for us. Like, if we deem it an emergency, yes, but they'll say, well, for us, that's not an emergency. So we can't give you the location of that phone. So location is everything. Like, we would like to know what's going on there. Your name is important as well, but without a location, we cannot do anything. And you need to check the outside of the house, check mail, check for medicine that may have the address on there, because it is absolutely important. Like, at least we can send you help with an address. If we don't have that, it prolongs everything. And people tend to think we can find you. Like, we get welfare check calls. They'll say, my daughter is threatening to harm herself. Where's she at? I don't know. Well, I don't either. You know what I mean? And I can't, and I can't find her. We get calls from the suicide hotline, and they're usually not in the state you're in. And so when they call, they don't have anything. Some people are like, well, I know she used to live here. They don't have anything if the person didn't give them anything. So those are really hard. Not to have a location, that's the worst. And the other thing is to try to explain what you want as best as possible. Like, even if you're not sure what the police can do for you, tell me what happened and tell me what you would like to see happen, because it's my job to put that under a particular category and tell you what can be done for you or what you need to do. So that's probably the two biggest things.
That's interesting because I'm one of the ones who thought once you dial 911, they automatically pick up your location. I did not know that.
No, we can't. If you have a landline, but with technology, that's so far and few in between. When you call from a cell phone, it gives us your cell phone tower, and that's not even accurate because I know a lot of people don't know this either. Cell phones work where the signal bounces from tower to tower until they find an open tower. I literally got a call from a young man one day. He was in Detroit, and it bounced a whole hour away to my city, and I got him. He was like, well, I'm in Detroit. I don't know how I got you. I was like, I'm not sure either, sir. And I had to try to transfer him to where he needed to go. So, absolutely not.
That that's interesting. Again, I mean, that's something that isn't on a poster board that says, "Hey, when you call 911, we don't know your location or it doesn't pick up." I did not know that. That's
Yes.
interesting. But you did give some good advice. So, audience, remember when you call 911, make sure you tell them your name, what is going on, and most importantly, tell them
Where
your
you
location.
are.
At
Yes.
least give something that's close by that can
Hmm.
match, correct, Kendra? Um,
Yes, or even if you remember like a landmark, if you're like, I don't know what street I'm on, but I saw a McDonald's that was next to a laundromat. You know what I mean? It can kind of help us narrow it down for you, and we can work with you. Some situations, I know people don't know where they are. You know what I mean? Like, I've never had like a kidnapping situation, but we've had like domestics where they can't tell us that they can't speak freely because they don't want the person to know that they've called the police, and we don't know where they are. You know what I mean? So just try to throw some things out. You know what I mean? Like, why are we passing this McDonald's? Throw it into your normal conversation, and it can kind of help us. Kind of come up with an idea, because we're pretty good with geography around here, but you still just have to help us out. We don't automatically know where you are.
and that's interesting that you mentioned the domestics. Like, again, we see on talk shows, on movies, someone that is in danger and they call 911, and a lot of times they just sit there. They don't say anything. What how do y'all how do you distinguish? What's the red flags that you go off of?
Um, a lot of it comes with experience because I actually just recently had a caller a couple of days ago where this happened. And initially, she was acting like everything was okay. She's like, oh, I don't know how this call got through. I don't know who called you. And I'm like, okay. And so she's talking to a young man in the background. And initially, I was like, okay, she's playing on my phone. But then I kind of started listening to what she was saying to the young man. And she was saying, like, I'm afraid. I don't think we should be here. We need to leave. And I was like, okay, so this is something different. So I, confirmed with her, like, do you know you called 911? And she said, yes. Can you not talk to me freely? No. So then after that, I just kind of started asking her yes or no questions. And we were able to figure out where she was and to get someone there to help her out. But a lot of the times it's just, you just have to listen to the conversation. Even when people accidentally call 911, we listen for a moment to see what we hear in the background, to see what we're hearing you say. But, you know, um, this is a great topic because it was in the news about a young lady having a domestic issue and she pretended to order a pizza. It is not that simple. We
Oh,
don't always pick up on those cues like, oh, okay, she's in danger. She needs help. And people always think, if they call and do the pizza thing, but that honestly was just the experience and the stroke of luck on that dispatcher. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
you have to give us some particular clue. Like, don't just call and hang up because our policy is to call you back to see if everything is okay. And we're going to call back and say, hey, this is 911. Your phone rang in. Is everything okay? So you just got to give us some kind of clue. Even if you just yell, if you're like, help and hang up, then we know we have to do some work. So like I said, some type of cue to let us in a word or something to let us know something's not right, and then we can tap into it. So
Right. That is so interesting. I didn't know about the pizza thing. That's something new. That's, you know, I have two little ones myself, and, you know, when they were younger, it was like 911 is emergency. Do not call. You're teaching them to do not call, but then later on you have to teach them, like, in case of an emergency, pick up the phone, call 911.
mm-hmm.
If me or daddy falls and you're here with us by yourself, pick up the phone and call 911. And so it's interesting that you said that, because just how life changes, kids get older, things change. It's important that they know when and why to call 911, because I know a lot of kids, they just dial it because it's an easy number to remember.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Another thing is pocket dialing. Do y'all get a lot of people that accidentally call because they sit on their phone or
absolutely, yes. And a lot of it is with Apple products. They've changed the way now that you turn your phone on and off. So when you push the power button, like people are used to, it sends you into emergency mode and it calls us. We get so many hang up calls, or like your Apple Watch. We get so many of them. It's not even funny. Like, my coworkers and I were joking the other day. I was like, who do I need to contact at Apple to get this fixed? Like,
that
you know what I mean?
I know what you're talking about. My sister-in-law, she'll probably kill me for this, but us being at the football game, the holders that's connected to the chairs, she'll
Yeah.
stuff her phone in there and it'll push the power button. And I hear her say, "Oh my gosh, it's calling 911 again." I mean, 4 or 5 times in a row it did
Yes.
it, and that's interesting you said about the Apple products. They're also trying to make it easier for someone to call 911,
Mm-hmm.
also trying to make it safe, but in the same sense, it's kind of Xing out both ways, either you
Yes.
can be a real caller or it's an accident.
Yes, and I think it's a really good idea. Like with the Apple Watch, we also get they have a hard fall detector, And so it automatically will call into 911, and it's an automated recording, and it'll tell you, this Apple Watch detected a hard fall. And so you have to wait to be connected with the person, and they'll be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I took it off and threw it on the couch. So
Really? How
and
do you
so it
do
called.
that?
Yes. And so it'll call 911. And so in one end, you understand it happens. But
Right,
on the other end, like when we're busy, it's annoying. You know what I mean? You have
right,
calls waiting, lined up. Like we can see how many calls are coming in at a time. And so if it's a bad accident or a fire and you've got all these calls backed up and they're waiting for you to answer, and then it's a hang up call. And you never know if it's an actual emergency, so you can't just hang up. You have to sit there like, hello, hello, and I've got to call you back sometimes a few times to make sure everything is okay, and like you mentioned at the football game with your sister-in-law, I had that, so all I heard was screaming, and I was like, okay, is this somebody hurt or like what's going on? And I listened for a while, and it gave me a general area on my map where it could be, and it was showing a high school. And so I started listening, and I was like, okay, it's a football game. And then I heard the announcer come over, and I was like, oh, okay, all right, nobody's hurt. It's a football game. Fine. You know what I
right,
mean? But so those things, they're triggers for us too. Like we've had people, they're partying and you'll hear them yell and they're cursing and you think it's trouble, but it's just people that are having fun with each other. So,
right,
so we have to tune into those things. And like I said, a hang up is not just a hang up. We have to make sure it's not trouble before we hang up. So,
right. So, those were some interesting examples. Also, you threw in some good tips. And about the Apple products, the big fall, I had no idea about that. That's good information.
yes.
But I think, especially my younger viewers, this would probably be their most favorite part of this episode. Um, so the police and other agencies, they use TIN codes to
Mm,
verbally communicate efficiently. So I know kids from watching movies. I know, certain families, they have codes and stuff. 10-4
yeah.
copy.
Yeah.
A lot of people aren't aware of what those codes actually mean. So if you could just go through a couple of those codes and let us know what they mean.
Surprisingly, we don't use 10 codes all the time like other jurisdictions do. Um, we do use them in some purposes. Like if we run a person and we are trying to let the officer know if this person has any warrants, um, I don't want to specifically say what the codes are just in case if somebody's with the officer because it's just that like it's a code between the dispatcher and the officer, but you can let someone know if they are officer, if they're going to be a safety hazard to the officer. You can let the officers know if someone has a misdemeanor or a felony, and if something is stolen. And that's the basis of what we use 10 codes for. We don't use them all the time, but we used to have a particular officer that used to say 10-4, like you said, and 10-4 generally means copy. And when I tell you, so many of the new dispatchers were so confused. They would tell him something and he'd go 10-4, and they were like, what? What is he? What? And one of the older dispatchers had to say, oh, that's when we used to use 10 codes. He's just saying copy. We were like, oh, okay. Because we
Right.
don't say 10-4, we say copy. So,
And the interesting thing is that, a lot of people don't even know there are codes.
mhm,
It's not for us as the caller to know those codes, but um, it's our responsibility to make sure, like you mentioned earlier, to let you know exactly what's going on. Then you will use the codes if
mhm.
necessary. But I know just random friends, kids, you hear people having a conversation 10-4, you know,
Oh,
copy that, just little things. But people don't realize, those are used in the emergency world. It's just
yes,
like you said, it's easier for y'all to communicate with each other, to know exactly what's going on without having to give a drawn out story of, oh,
yes.
they're in danger type thing.
And
Um,
it's honestly it's really funny because as a dispatcher and the longer you do this job, the more you do what we call dispatcher speak in everyday life. You know what I mean? Like if someone I've had people they'll ask me something like, "Well, are you going to go out to dinner?" and I'll say stand by. And somebody asked me one day, they were like, "Did you just tell me to stand by?" And I'm like, "I did. I'm sorry. I'm good for copy that." Instead of saying like yes or no, we say affirmative or negative. So, somebody will be like, "You going out tonight?" And that's a negative. And we use codes for typing so that we're not having to, we can type faster. And when I first became a dispatcher, texting for me was so hard because I always wanted to text in my dispatcher type. And I
Mhm.
always found myself like deleting and retyping because I was using my work abbreviations in regular text messages. Is such a hard habit to break. But any other dispatchers that watch this, they will know what I mean because we do it all the time. Like
Right.
and it's normal for us. It's when other family members hear it. And then I do it with my family and they usually don't say anything. But like I said, with that one gentleman, he's like, "Did you just tell me to stand by?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry. That just means wait a minute, give me a minute."
That's interesting. And I I do believe that because you do that on a daily basis, it turns into your lifestyle. And that's how you communicate with other people unknowingly. Well, Kimra, like, can you give us like a rough estimate of how many calls you receive during your work shift?
You know what? We keep statistics, and I actually got that for you coming to work. But we generally have, at best, we'll have like 5 call takers that are scheduled. There's some a supervisor, and there's some other dispatchers that can actually take calls. But we have about 5 scheduled, and so looking at my statistics, let me first say it depends on what's going on. You'll get a spike. Winter is different than summer. We get more calls in the summertime. You get more calls on the weekends. And I work the day shift. I work 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So we don't get as many calls as they get from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. because people are, partying, they're drinking, or they're off of work later in the evening. But a rough estimate, looking at my statistics, like in a month in total, we can get anywhere from 1,000 to like 1,300 calls in a month. We do about 30 to 35,000 for the entire month, and generally at the end of the year we have about anywhere from 3 to 500,000 calls
Wow,
at the end of the year.
that is a lot.
Yes.
I'm blown by the numbers. That's interesting. Um, would you say that the calls would be more or less in a bigger area like LA or New York?
I'm sure it would probably be more. Because people call 911 for everything, and people don't understand that. Like we've had a conversation about calling 911 for emergencies, and it's not even children. The adults are worse than the children. They call for everything. Like my power went out. My cat is stuck in a tree. You know what I mean? Like I
Right.
can't get into my house, and you're like, okay, what? I don't understand what you would like for me to do for you. We've had
What
people
did you
call for
want me
rides.
to
Like
do?
I just had a young man call. He was like, my car stopped, and sometimes we call out like a tow truck for you. So I was like,
Mhm.
okay, so you're wanting a tow truck? Well, I don't have money for that. So how can I help you today? Well, I need a ride home. And you decided to call 911 for that?
Oh,
Like,
wow.
no, that's not what we do here. So, you get a lot of non-emergency calls. Like, and we have a separate non-emergency line, but we still get so many 911 calls. I had an officer, and we have a separate number for officers
Mhm,
to call to get directly into dispatch.
mhm.
I'm assuming this young man didn't know it. He dialed 911. He was like, "Hey, this is Officer such and such. Can I get my dispatcher?" And I was really confused. Like I looked at the phone and I was like, "Yeah, he dialed 911. Okay." so, So yeah, so it's a lot. We get a lot of calls, and I would assume it would be, more in bigger cities because you have more people that are
Right.
calling for things that they deem an emergency. So
That's interesting. So you basically let us know that your job can be exciting, interesting, and then it can be serious and sad all in one day,
oh
which is crazy. I mean,
yes.
absolutely crazy.
You
Um,
just you never know what you're gonna get from moment to moment. Like the
right,
biggest things I let the citizens know is they will want to know how long it's gonna take an officer to get there or an ambulance to get there or something. And I always tell them, we don't give ETAs here at 911 because our job is based on what's going on with the next call, and we don't know what's gonna come in once I hang up with you. So I can't
right.
tell you how long this officer's gonna take because I don't know what's gonna happen next. So.
Right. It's just living like minute by minute. You just don't
Mhm.
know. Things change. So Kendra, lastly, can you just share with us a memorable moment that you've experienced as a 911 dispatch?
You know what? I actually am glad that you asked this question. Like I said, I've been doing this for almost 11 years. And I think I do a really good job at compartmentalizing. Like me and most of my coworkers, we don't tend to take these things home when you do have a tragedy. We're able to leave it at work. They offer us services to deal with those kind of things, but we do really good about leaving them at work. And so, I appreciated what I do for my job, but I didn't think I had done anything so much to stand out. But actually, about maybe 6 months ago now, if that, I delivered a baby over the phone, and it was my first baby I ever delivered and going on 11 years. And so I was really excited, and it made me feel good. It made me feel like I really made a difference. I didn't when they called, I didn't think the baby was going to be born. Like my coworkers were messing with me, like, "Yep, you're going to be delivering that baby." And I was like, "Oh, absolutely not. She's not. She's had a baby. No, we got this." And I told her husband I'm giving him instructions, and we have medical cards that tell us that prep us for these things or help us prep the citizens. And
Mhm.
I'm like, I gotta have you lay her on the ground. I need you to look between her legs and tell me if you see anything. And he said, okay. And then he said, nope, I don't see anything. And the ambulance was already en route. He says, I don't see anything. I'm like, okay, great, we got this. And then he said, oh, I see a head. And so we just had to, we had to get towels, we had to get the water, we had to prep, and the baby came out and she was fine. And so,
Oh,
and it was actually really good because we don't get a lot of closure. That's one of the things here as dispatchers. Sometimes we can get the officers to tell us what happened at a call or get medical professionals, but a lot of the time we don't get closure. We don't know what happened. And
right.
it just so happened that baby was the godchild of one of my coworkers. So she was able to come into work, and she showed me pictures and she showed me the baby. And so mom's doing well, baby's doing well, and it all ended well. So I was really
Yay.
excited about that.
Oh, that is a precious memory, memorable moment. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
And again, that's that's something that you might see on television, on a show, or even in
Yes.
a movie. You don't think of it really happening in real life. Well,
Yes.
Kim,
Like a lot of my coworkers have done it. I never thought. I never thought
never
I would
thought.
deliver a baby. Never. But
Well,
it did
Kimra,
well.
I just want to say thank you for giving us so much insight, sharing stories, and helping us because there's a lot of things that callers don't know when they call
Yes.
911. And we appreciate your service and we say thank you, thank you, thank you. This is so precious. And you have inspired somebody today on the Tom Marie Show.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate you inviting me and giving me a platform to get this information out because, like I said, the public needs to know. And so I'm happy I was able to do this.
Well, thank you so much, Kenra.
Thank you.
So, viewers, we just had an episode of 911 What's Your Emergency with Kimber Green with Genesis County 911 Dispatch Authority, which is in Michigan. and she gave us an overview of the things that we need to know when we call 911. First things first, please know your location. Make sure you give your name and let them know what the emergency is. Now, if you're in danger, you have to speak in code. You can only answer yes or no questions. They will be able to pick up on that and they'll be able to help you out. Well, viewers, that's the end of this episode of the Tom Marie Show, where we keep it real on the mic, making inspiring choices.